Hello and welcome. In today's video, what we're going to be discussing is the process of photosynthesis, or how plants can go ahead and convert CO2, water, and sunlight into oxygen, as well as a usable form of sugar called glucose. We'll also be discussing the reactants and products of each step in the reaction. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right in. So photosynthesis requires sunlight, carbon dioxide, or CO2, and water, or H2O. And this process produces two primary products, one being glucose, or sugar, and the other being oxygen. So, the formula for all this is denoted as the following. So we have 6 molecules of CO2 plus 6 molecules of H2O, or water, plus sunlight will go ahead and give us C6H12O6, which is our glucose, and also 6 molecules of oxygen. So you're going to need to know this formula here. So 6 CO2 plus 6 H2O plus sunlight gives us C6H12O6, glucose, and 6 molecules of oxygen. As we progress, we're going to be discussing the two major factors that give us these products. So let's go ahead and get to it. The first set of reactions are known as the light-dependent reactions, and these occur inside the thylakoid. So, the first step is light is absorbed by the chlorophyll, and that light is used to go ahead and excite some electrons. Now, once these electrons are excited, they're going to move through a series of reactions called the electron transport chain to go ahead and be used in our next step. So once we have these electrons excited, and this light energy is more focused, the light energy is going to be used to split the water molecules into hydrogen and oxygen. Now, considering that we are breaking bonds, we are also releasing ATP, which is our universal energy carrier. So from here, the hydrogen is used in the next step, and the oxygen is then released into the atmosphere. So the oxygen is released, and the hydrogen then bonds to a carrier molecule to create something called NADPH, which will then be used up in our next set of reactions called the dark reactions. So here is a brief overview of this process. So remember, the light reactions occur inside the thylakoid, or our pancakes. The reactants are sunlight and water. And from these set of reactions, we get the product of NADPH, the energy carrier used up in the next set of reactions, ATP, which will be used to create sugar in the next set of reactions, and oxygen, which is released out into the atmosphere. So, light reactions occur in the thylakoid, take in sunlight and water, and release oxygen, ATP, and NADPH. The next set of reactions are known as the light-independent reactions. So they're called the light-independent reactions because, well, they don't require light. They are also known as the dark reactions or the Calvin cycle, named after the individual who went ahead and found that this cycle existed. That individual was none other than this jovial-looking gentleman called Melvin Calvin. And these occur inside the stroma. And if you remember, the stroma is the dark, viscous, syrupy liquid that is found inside the chloroplast. The steps in this reaction are as follows. So carbon dioxide will enter the plant and attach itself to a sugar molecule, a very small, simple one. And this process is called carbon fixation. So carbon fixation just means attaching carbon to the sugar molecule. From here, the carbon dioxide, sugar molecule, NADPH and ATP, which if you remember, NADPH and ATP are from our light reactions, go ahead and combine with the use of an enzyme to create glucose and even more CO2. So from here, this CO2 can be used to go ahead and keep the plant running while there's no sunlight. In the meantime, what we have here, the glucose is then stored away until it's needed by the plant. So let's go ahead and take a look at a brief summary of these events. So the dark reactions, or light-independent reactions, once again occur inside the stroma. Remember, that is the dark viscous liquid outside of the thylakoids. The reactants include CO2, as well as ATP and NADPH from our previous set of reactions. So here's our CO2, here's our ATP and NADPH. So the CO2 attaches to a sugar molecule with the process of carbon fixation. And then at the end of this, we get glucose. Now, besides glucose being a product, we also have two more byproducts that are created. Now, considering that we went ahead and used the energy in ATP, we broke one of the bonds, going back and making ADP plus a phosphate, as well as NADP plus. Because if you remember, this hydrogen right here was also used during the light-independent reactions to create our glucose. So in summary, the location of the dark reactions is found within the stroma. The reactants include CO2, ATP, and NADPH, whereas the products include glucose, ADP, and NADP+. So NADP+ and ADP will be used in the next set of reactions, and the cycle will continue. The final thing we need to discuss are factors that can affect photosynthesis, or the rate or speed at which these reactions occur. The first is light intensity. The more light present, the faster the rate of photosynthesis. So, the more light, or the stronger of the light intensity, will go ahead and cause the reaction to occur much more quickly. Up next is the CO2 concentration. The more CO2 present while the reactions are taking place, the faster the rate of photosynthesis will occur. So that's why if you've ever heard plants will grow faster and better when you speak to them, there's actually some truth to that, because every time you speak, exhale, or do anything of that nature, you are exhaling CO2 into the environment, which the plants can then use. Also, the final thing is temperature. So, in extreme temperatures of either hot or cold, the rate of photosynthesis will slow down, because the plant needs to go ahead and conserve water. So light intensity increases the rate, CO2 concentration increases the rate, and temperature will slow down the rate of photosynthesis. Now, this gives you an overview of the process of photosynthesis, as well as the two reactions being the light-dependent reactions and the light-independent reactions. If you have any questions, please go ahead and ask your instructor. They'll go ahead and try to clear things up for you. In the meantime, as always, thank you very much for your time. Take care of yourself, and until the next video, I'll see you then.